What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to welcome back to another video. On the previous video that we brought Omar Zamora in, he brought up to us another gentleman, Arcadio Magaña, to hop on this pod so we can discuss more about what success looks like, what are the type of things that we look for, and just overall having a raw conversation. So, Arcadio, if you want to introduce yourself, just tell us about how old you are, what do you do, things like that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys having me on. My name is Arcadio Magaña. I'm 32 years young,
That's
and
right.
I am a district sales manager for a Fortune 200 company um, in the coatings manufacturing world. So that's what I do. I've been
It's
doing it for a
amazing.
little over 12, about 12 years. But yeah, it's about what I do.
12
You know,
years. I didn't
it,
know that, bro.
I was just
Yeah.
gonna say, it's crazy because someone can say a title like that, and to some person it's just a title, but to somebody else, it's 12 years of hard, long work and just like dedication, commitment to like get to that point. Like that's really cool. When did this all kind of start? Like, what was? I wanted to like take a trip back to memory lane. Like, let's talk about Arcadio in high school. Like, what was going on in your mind? Like,
Yeah.
what were the stepping stones to this industry?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I mean, this was never in the works, never in the plans, never was a thing that I even thought about. I think when anyone thinks about a coating, which is paint, basically, um, I mean, you think about like just going to a big box store, right? Home Depot, you walk in, pick a color, they make your paint, and you're out of there. But kind of how it all played out. I mean, in general, if you want to go back to high school, which is man, you're really opening up a can of worms. But I'm more than happy to get into it. So, I mean, look, man, I've always been a student. I enjoyed learning. So typical, student honors, did some IB classes, AP classes, just was always wanting to learn more. Um, and so when I graduated high school, I mean, I wanted to go to college, and I was fortunate enough to receive a 2-year full ride scholarship to Indian River State College here in Fort Pierce, which kind of again I always tell when I tell my story in a way I would say it was like a blessing in disguise because for me, like I always grew up knowing my parents were just kind of getting by, and just enough to pay the bills, keep food on the table, and get us some clothes. So I was like, all right, well, what am I gonna do? And so I just got to working. As a young adult, I was always working in landscaping with my uncle. And so as soon as I graduated, I just was like, hey, I'm ready to just work full time with you. So that's what happened. And then I applied for IRC. Like I said, I got that scholarship and did the 2 years. And then after that, I was like, hey, well, I think I need to go to UCF. Um, I applied, I got accepted, but being a homebody, just always being around my family and just a family person, I was like, man, I can't make this move. I don't know how I'm going to do it. So I ultimately, at the same time, IRC came out with like their first bachelor's degrees, which was business, um, accounting, and I think they had like maybe like medical management or something like that. Long story short, I was already in the business program, so I just continued, got my bachelor's in business. And I was stumbling at Walmart one day, typical Sunday with my mom, because that was like a non-negotiable on Sundays. It was
Mhm.
family day. So, I saw a buddy that was working at this painting company. Or it's not really a painting company. We sell paint. And so basically, he's like, hey, you should go apply. It's a part-time position. I'm like, man, I kind of would like to work inside. I'm kind of tired of working out in the hot summer weather. But it was a bit. The major thing was it was a conflict with my school schedule. So I ultimately did that. And so in the meantime, I got that job. I was working. I think one of you guys might have even worked here, Oak Harbor. But I actually worked at Oak Harbor from about 2011 to about 2015.
Dude, that's
Uh,
crazy. I did not know that. Oh my
yeah,
God, that's so
so
cool.
yeah, that's kind of where like the eagerness to want to just move up within an organization really started. If you really think about it, because it started off as a busser, and then a
Mhm.
couple more months in, they're like, hey, you need to be a server, and next thing you know, hey, you need to be a bar back, and then bartender, and then key holder. But anyways, did all those couple jobs while I was in school, graduated with my bachelor's, and then I came home one day and I got a call from my district manager while I was a part timer at this retail location, and he was like, "Hey, I heard that you just graduated or about to graduate. What's next for you?" And I'm like, "I don't know." Because I really didn't know. I knew what I wanted to do, because I've always done it, which would just be a business owner of some sort. But I didn't really have that in concrete. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have anything set in stone. He's like, "Well, look, I've heard great things about you. I think you need to think about our management trainee program that we have within the organization, which I could get you right away, get you in right away." So I'm like, "Hey, like, let me think about it. I mean, like, that's a big ask of me to just make a commitment right now, but I'll get back to you." That was like a Friday. I was wrapping up something that day, and I got home that day. I mentioned it to my mom, and she's like, "Well, what are they going to pay you?" And I told her the dollar amount, which to me, in the moment, I was like, it's like it's money. Like for me, money was never really something that motivated me. Never has been to this day. But as we know, money is something that takes care of a lot of problems. If it makes you, if it allows you to be very comfortable in many ways. But my mom was like, "Man, like, I was speaking Spanish. Mijo, pues, tu papá, he works 24/7, 7 days a week in the agriculture industry. I know you guys know about that with your dad being in the
Mhm.
packing house side of things. But my dad was on the field side. He was a field supervisor for a citrus company. And she's like, he makes, less than 40,000 and he's working, 7 days a week. He leaves before the sun comes back at night. You guys barely get to see him, and you're getting offered this opportunity to work, at the time, 44 hours for X amount of dollars." And she's like, "I think you need to give it a shot." I'm just like, "Yeah, but that's not what I want to do." Like I didn't take this job because I wanted to make a career out of it. I just wanted to have a job so I could pay for my gas to get me to school and back. She's like, "Yeah, but I mean, you got to look at the bigger picture." And so again, I'm a person that to really reflect and kind of process everything. So I did that weekend, and that following Monday, I went back and I called him. I'm like, "Hey man, like let's just give it a shot. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Like I don't like the job, and we part ways." And so he did that. It took like 2 months for them to finally get me into the program. But at the time I was working that first year in Vero Beach in one of our retail locations. And so at that point, they shipped me down to Port St. Lucie. And again, guys, this is going to be I'll try to make it as elevator pitch as possible so it can get quick, but
No,
that's
it's
kind of like
great. Go ahead. Yeah.
so you get into this program, and it's usually about 8 weeks. So they send me to a training location down in Port St. Lucie. And I did that. And then at that point, they sent me to Merritt Island up in Cape Canaveral area to a location up there as an interim assistant manager for this retail location. And they told me, "Hey, you're going to be there for a couple months. Um, just help us out. We're gonna find you a location." And so then I get a call like a couple weeks later, and they're like, "Hey, we're thinking about shipping you up to Daytona." And I'm like, "Daytona?" I'm like, "I don't know if I can do that, man. Like, I live in Fellsmere."
Yeah.
And I don't, I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm gonna have to like rent an apartment. Like, I don't even know how that works. Like, I've been living at my mom's at this point. I'm like 22, 23. And I'm like, I don't know about that, man. But yeah, sure. Like, let me know. And then like a week later, "Hey, actually, we might send you to Palm Coast." I'm like, "Well, that's even further." Um, Ultimately, I ended up getting placed at that Merritt Island location, and I spent about 2.5 years. And I'm gonna plug this person in with the hopes of you guys being able to get him on the podcast one day. His name's Lauren Wilder, but Omar knows him. He's actually his son's barber as well. I
Oh,
connected
wow.
them via the barber world because I get my haircut by Omar every now and again. But Lauren was basically like that manager that really kind of set the tone of how I should kind of pursue my career. We both went through very challenging 2.5 years, trying to get that store back on track. But it was awesome. We got to ship Blue Origins, which is Jeff Bezos, rocket plant. So we shipped, 20 plus thousand gallons worth of product. Got to be a part of, some really cool projects out there. And at that point, I got promoted as a store manager in Rockledge. And at that point, Nayeli and I, my wife,
Mhm.
Dr. Magaña, to be exact, Um, we had got married at that point, and we were living, and we actually moved to Melbourne, and we're living there. And so I get promoted to a store manager in Rockledge. And at that time, I'll plug this in, and we can get into it. My dad got diagnosed with cancer, and so I'm first time manager. I'm trying to make figure it all out, because Lauren Wilder was like, "Hey man, are you sure you want to do this?" Because it's like a whole like that jump to store manager is like a whole another ball game. Like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm ready. Like, like what's the worst that can happen? And sure enough, I take that role, and I'm like, man, like this is tough, and I'm dealing with just the everyday thing, logistical operations, sales, whatever the case may be. And then my dad get diagnosed, so that was kind of like a big curveball for me in my career. But in that moment, like I was just like, man, like I got to make this happen. And I always tell the story that looking back, I was like, man, like my dad ended up passing away about a year after that. And what I tell people is like, looking back, I remember I would always complain. I'd call him like, hey, I'm not gonna be able to come see you today, but I'll see you tomorrow. And I tell people, I'm like, man, like I was complaining about work, being tired, and there's this guy that's on his deathbed, and every day you call him, he's like, hey man, I'm good. Todo para adelante. Tú échale ganas. I'll see you when I see you. All right, cool.
Wow, man.
Next day.
Man.
But in that moment, this was a time in my career where I was like, man, like I'm done. I'm 23 years old. Like I don't feel like dealing with this. So, me and Lauren had this story. He's actually no longer with this art organization that I'm a part of. But, he'd always have this thing where he had his keys on his hip and he'd like practice taking them off. It's like, man, I'm not coming back. I'm gonna leave these keys one day and I'm not coming back. So I started doing the same motions. Like, yo, like I'm not coming back. And then I'd come back. And then the next week would come, I'd do the same thing. And then one day it got to that point where I'm like, man, like I'm too young. I don't want to be dealing with that. So I want to be with my family. So that day I went home and I told my wife, I'm like, hey, like I'm done. Like I'm not going back. I can't deal with this. And humbled myself that week, thought it through. I'm like, what am I really complaining about? Showed up that Monday, 6 o'clock, I'm in there. So, that was that step. And then in that moment, I talked to my boss at the time, and I'm like, hey man, like I need a change. I need something that kind of just reignites that spark that I know is within me, but I'm just kind of like stuck. And so they promoted me to a larger volume store, which, part of my story, my career path, is like, and it's not just for me, I think for a lot of people. A lot of us sometimes get doubted. Like, can you really handle, your task? Can you handle your role? Are you suited for for what you're being, tasked to do? And that was kind of like that situation. That next step that I took in my career was like I got this big store, and it's always been like a high profile store where like seasoned managers get placed, and then you got this guy that's been with the company for 3 years, just came off of being a store manager at a different location for 8 months, which is unheard of. And then they gave this store to this guy. Like, who is this guy? But long story short, I did really well. My dad ended up passing away in that moment, in that time that I was there. And then at that point, I was there for about a year and a half at that location. Then I got promoted to be a sales rep for residential contractors down in Palm City. So that Ellie and I packed our bags. We relocated down to Fort Pierce so I could get closer to where I was going to be working at. And so I did that for about 2.5 years. I had a really good run. Within the organization, we have like what they call like leaders, masters, and presidents club. I think a lot of organizations have something similar. But I was able to do that twice, both masters, and then my second year did a president's club. So I set up the territory, that situation, to kind of really be successful for the actually next couple of years. The person that took over did really well as well. But and then after that, Dayeli in this time period had been trying to get into postgraduate school. She wanted to be a OT. But in that time, it's tough, man. It's a challenging market, and I mean, now that I'm sure you can understand the challenges to get into, a postgraduate program where it's either rigorous or
For
just
sure.
there's just a small pool of people that can get in. So she
For
had been
sure.
applying. She wasn't getting in. So we decided, like, hey, like time's ticking. Like we need to start a family. So we ended up having my son. And then like a couple weeks later, she got accepted while she was pregnant.
Wow.
She got accepted to 3 schools. So she had like Advent, the two that I recall at least were Advent Health in Orlando and then Nova Southeastern down in Fort Lauderdale. And she's like, hey, like, where should I go? I'm like, look, one commitment that I made to her as a spouse is like, hey, when the time comes that I have to make that sacrifice to make sure that you pursue your career, what you want to do, like I'm flexible. I gotta be flexible to you, because you've been flexible to my situation. So she ended up going with Fort Lauderdale. And deep down under me, I was like, man, I really hope she picks Orlando. you know, but she ended up picking Nova Southeastern, and so we ended up packing our bags. I got promoted. I took an opportunity down in Fort Lauderdale, and at that point, instead of being going like progressing through the career, I actually kind of took like a little step back. I went back into the stores, and ran a large volume commercial training store, which if you look at our career path and how it works, is really not a step back, but a lot of people like, why would you go from being in sales, outside sales, now back into inside sales, which is historically a tougher market to be in. But I knew that in my career that specific check mark in my resume would look well. I had a team of 16 people. So and it was like a high profile store. We got all the visits. Basically every executive, with the exception of the CEO, came to my store at that point. But we moved down there, had our son, like I said, and she started going through, doing her postgraduate. And that was we had originally moved down there like in 20, I think it was like 2021, end of 2021. And I was in that operation, that location for about a year and a half. And then same thing, I came up against some challenges. And I kind of found I don't know what depression is. I don't know what really anxiety is. I would tell people I don't know what that is, but I found myself in that situation, and so I'm like, I got to get out of here before I dig myself a bigger hole. So I took another promotion, went back into this onto the sales side down in Aventura in Miami. But since we lived in downtown Fort Lauderdale, I kind of was able to just drive down there. Took that role, and was there for about 6 months. And I started applying for district sales manager roles, which is what I do now. The first role that I applied for was in the Caribbean. So I'd basically be based out of Davie, and then I'd fly out every other week to the Caribbean, whether it be like Jamaica, Curacao, Cayman Islands, stuff like that. So that's what I would do. Fortunately, I didn't get the job, which was kind of like a blessing in disguise, because after the fact, I'm like, I don't know how we would have worked this out. But at that same time, my old manager, she had just got promoted to a district manager in Palm Beach, and at that point, she had an opportunity that opened up. I applied. Obviously did really well in the interview process, and which is in the role that I'm in now, and which I've been in now 2.5 years. So
Congrats.
again, that's about 12 years, just about a month shy of 12 years of my career within the organization. But Adrian, you mentioned up something. A lot of people hear the title, they don't really think about, hey, like, well, how'd you get there? What were the obstacles? What were the challenges? What was the good? What was the bad? What was that fluff that happened in between those 12 years? And I think that's what I always try to tell people, is that regardless of the story, whether it's professionally or personally, you gotta get the foundation. You gotta get the guts out of that story to be able to paint a picture of how someone got there. Whether you're down on your luck and on the streets, or you're top of the world working for an organization, on the professional level. So that's a
Yeah.
little bit about me on the professional side, man. But yeah.
Man, that was an amazing breakdown and story. And Alan, before you go, I just want to say I think this is like what most people don't understand is the point to get to where you're at. We always hear about people getting gifted the lottery or something, and then they lose it all, right? Because they never built the character that they needed to build throughout the process that you just described now. So you were like, you had a team of 16 people. Alan, I always call Alan and say, hey, Alan, what does leadership mean? And then
Mm-hmm.
he always says leadership is influence. And we always have this
Mm-hmm.
conversation that the journey like builds your character and builds you who you need to
Yeah.
be in order to take on those new blessings, right, that came on. But I think for some people, they don't take those next steps to then, overcome those obstacles, those adversity to build them to then accept the next blessing, and they stop from trying. So I guess before Adhan maybe asks his question at the same time, I also wanted to ask, like, what made you want more? Like what made you, like you said something, you were like in a position, so you asked for a raise or you asked for a different position. Like why did you want to succeed? Like why did you want more than what was
Yeah,
a necessity for you? Because you could have easily done, a couple yards a week and you just make a living and then you're good. Like you
yeah,
had this I think the word is yearnment, if I'm not mistaken,
yeah,
for more. So I just
yeah.
wanted to pick your brain about that. But Adhan, if you want to add a question to that too, or anything you had to
I mean,
say.
just to your question, I just think it's fascinating to see that you kind of looked for it, even if you came in as an assistant or you could call it at the base level entry for your job, it's just pretty amazing to see how you can elevate in anything you do. And it comes to show to not underestimate any job you get into, whether it's in restaurant, whether it's in construction, vendors like, paint, things like that. I
Yeah.
just think it's great to see that there's opportunities. You just have to like keep your eyes open, and when you see one, just execute. And it's clearly what you did, man. So, but yeah, to follow to with his question, I'm also curious.
Yeah, so I mean, I think for me, I mean, it's always been my family, kind of just understanding, and you guys can understand, obviously, and relate, is the sacrifice that our families made to come here. Um, for me, that's always been, I think, the forefront of all my aspirations to want to do more. I think we can all relate that our parents want us to always do better than what they did, and have it better than what they had it, because that's what they wanted for us. So I think for me, it's always been just being able to reflect and say, you know what, it was worth the sacrifice that our parents came here. But even just now that I'm a father of two, is and obviously a husband, is being able to provide and be be more and be better, not only for myself but for my family as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it just for me, it's just being able to put my family in a better situation, ultimately more than anything. And obviously, I have that personal drive. I like challenges. People always tell me like, "Hey, what role did you like the best in your career?" And for me, it was always a store side. I enjoyed having that smoke steaming out of my head. Just be having the ability to multitask and delegate so many things all at one time. Um,
Mhm.
that just kind of just fueled the fire for me. So on the real note, it's probably more like not proving anybody that I could do it. It just more like say like, hey, thank you family for doing what you had to do to put me in this situation. And obviously for my personal is like, hey, like being able to challenge myself and knowing that, hey, I know you can do it, but you got to put yourself in that situation. A lot of us historically, we wait for that situation to come and to be like, hey, it's your turn, instead of chasing it. And
Mhm.
and people will say like, well, why chase it? Let it come. Well, it depends who you are as a person as well. I've always
Mhm.
been the person that I'm not gonna wait for something to happen. I'm gonna make it happen.
Right.
So that was kind of my whole career. Is like, no, if I knew I could do something, I'm gonna put myself in that situation, and I don't care what anybody says. I'm gonna make it happen.
It's
So
amazing,
that's
man.
just what it's always been. Yeah.
Yeah, by your story, it definitely sounds like you always wanted to be put into an uncomfortable situation to learn and get the most out of it. You mentioned that you felt like you were kind of lost in rotations on a position that you were at, and then you were like seeking, like, hey, what's the next step? Hey, what's the next
Yeah.
step? I have a question as far as you said that you've been in rooms where it's like at a more management level, or like what does that look like? And what is the main thing you learn from things like that, from those high level people? I believe most of it is like, you can probably say it's universal when it comes to like that type of, I don't know if execution, whether that's like focusing on like numbers, KPIs, right? Like
Mhm.
what exactly does that look like? What is your main takeaway now that you've stepped into that room?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that was kind of like what for me, coming up in my career, you always kind of think about, hey, like what's behind that door? What's behind those curtains? What does the conversations actually look like? And one thing I will say, man, and this was always been a disclaimer for me in my career, and I would always tell my people and my friends and my colleagues, I'm like, hey, when I get to that point, make sure that you check me. I don't want to change who I am as a person. I think that you have to look at things through a different lens. And you have to be able to, you know, regurgitate certain, you know, conversations or initiatives or conversations or goals to your people, right? To the I don't want to call them the lower level, you know, because that's not what it. But you know, the people that maybe that report to you, um, you know, you have to find a way of kind of making it so where they understand what you're saying. But the conversations to your point are definitely higher level, and you know what it has allowed me to understand is that like it's no different. You know, they're human just like we are. You know, I'm a human, they're a human, we're all humans, right? It just the number gets bigger. You know, so you know my team, you know, time will tell. I have a team of 13. You know, they all have asked me at some point and said, "Hey, what's your goal?" And I'm like, "Well, take your goal times 13, right? That's my goal. It's not anything different. It's just a bigger number, more responsibility. But their ultimate goal is, to your point, is, hey, how do I get you as the local leadership team to be able to execute on behalf of your people, right? Because our job is to get our people to execute at a high level, whether it's through sales, conversations, you know, initiatives, whatever it is that we have at that time. It's the same conversation. It's just a bigger picture. So I wouldn't say that it's any different than maybe just a conversation with, you know, a colleague or anything. It's just different, man. It just the terminology is different.
Hmm.
You
Just
know,
on a larger scale, it sounds like
yeah,
just
just a larger
thinking
scale,
bigger.
man. Yeah, for sure. You know, I mean, fortunately, at this point in my 2.5, 3 years in leadership, and even before, man, like you know, I was given the opportunity to be in these rooms in those current positions that I had, just because they knew, hey, this person there's an opportunity here with this person, you know,
Hmm.
and so they would put me in leadership programs within the organization, you know, and they said, hey, like this is someone that, you know, they put that little star on you, like, hey, there's something here, we got to explore it some more, and they send you off. um,
Hmm.
but it's awesome to be able to amongst those people, to just again just learn,
Hmm.
you know, how they look at things. So, you know, for example, you know, our last executive visit that I had back in October, you know, our division president was like, hey, you know, I want to be real with you guys. 2026 is going to be a rough year. But at the end of the day, right, we're in sales. We got to make it happen, you know? So, what he said at that moment is like, hey, we just got to make sure that we're proactive. You know, if Q1 comes by and we fell short, we got to figure out why. We got to be able to put our finger on where we have to make it up. And so that's kind of how you slowly start to change your mentality, because a lot of us, when we have a goal, let's say I'm just going to give you a number, $1 million sales goal that year. We're like, all right, I got to get to $1 million, but we don't know how we're going to get there. You have to be able to have a plan, and you got to be able to pivot from that plan at any point if your quota or your goal is not trending in that direction. And so, you know, working for an operation like the one we that I work for, obviously the metrics, the tracking is unreal. So you're able to do that, but some of us will overlook that. You know, there's
Hmm.
all the resources can be on the table to be able to be successful, but we'll just look at them and be like, yeah, I'm not trying that, because we get so comfortable with doing, you know, the normal things that are, you know, a lot of people don't use AI, for example. And I always tell people like you're kind of missing out. You know, you got to leverage it. I'm not saying it's perfect that you got to use it for everything, but you got to leverage AI. You got to leverage reports. You got to leverage technology. So again, just to answer your question, man. I mean, I wouldn't say it's much different to your point. It's just a bigger picture when you're in those rooms.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah.
I had
Yeah,
a
it's
I had a quick question. Or go ahead, sorry, Alan.
no, you're good. You're good. Go ahead.
I was just curious to know like your philosophy behind, because you mentioned how, part of your why, the reason why you're moving for more, because obviously for your family, but also for your future family like that you have now, right? You have two kids and a wife. And as a man, I think you have a sense of value to add to people. I feel like a lot of men out there in like society, people that are achieving things or trying to grow for something, they're trying to build a sense of value for a family. At least that's what's in a sense what people think, right? As a man,
Mhm.
you have to add value. So you need to grow yourself in many different industries of your life to then have value to add to the marketplace, the economy, and even in relationships like in
Mhm.
families, right? Is that a
Mhm.
philosophy that you abide by, or what is your kind of like mentality when it comes to like growing as a unit or like growing as a like what does that kind of look like in terms of like progressing in life
Yeah, I
in
mean,
terms of a family?
yeah, for sure. I mean, I think ultimately it starts with you, right? You got to be able to hold yourself accountable and understand, hey, what do you want for yourself? I mean, I'm a firm believer that if you don't want it for yourself, then no one's going to want it for you. But it's a direct reflection of whatever your aspiration. So for me, to your point, yeah, it's family. It's growing in my career and what I do, but it doesn't stop there. You can't be complacent. You got to continue to challenge yourself. But yeah, for me, it's just doing more, doing it better, and just the ultimate goal is to not be where I'm at, right? Chasing that, we call it a carrot. Like we're
Yeah.
like little rabbits, just always taking that little bite.
Yeah.
Just kind of stay engaged within whatever it is we got going.
Yeah.
But I think we'd be remiss if we don't think of other opportunities that are out there outside of what you got going on. And I think that's what in the corporate setting, I think that's where we fall short. So to kind of answer your question is, you know, what can I do on the professional setting? I always try to kind of shed a light on the diverse people that we have within the organization. That if we want to be better as an organization, we have to one look like the people that are internally, but we also have to support and be able to pivot or a business plan based off on the people that keep us in business. So, for example, for us would be the Hispanic customer. 70% of our customer base is Hispanic. So if we don't integrate policies and initiatives that support the Hispanic customer, we're doing ourselves a disservice. Same thing with our people. I always like to shed light when I'm in like let's say a roundtable with HR. It's like, hey, we want more bilingual people within our organization. We're not going to find them at UF. We're not going to find them at one of these universities, and we can find them. It's just you're not going to find the type of people that are looking to be in this industry. You got to start at a high school, right? When they're fresh out, maybe a state college. There's such a lower ceiling growing up. You think like the ceiling's right above your head, and so like you graduate high school, and your parents like you made it, time to get to work, and not knowing that there's an opportunity to break through and do more. Um, and again, there's a job for everyone. So it's not to say that you can't graduate high school and do that. I've always been a firm believer that college is not for everyone, and that should be, and that's okay. There's a lot of successful people that we know within our little community of Fellsmere that have made it big without a college education. But again, if we want to be better as humans, we have to look out for those people, and we have to be able to attract within those communities that need it. Because again, for me, thinking back, like I'm not supposed to be where I'm at, right? It just happened, and I made the best of it. Uh, but yeah, man.
I don't
What
agree, man. I think you deserve it. I think it's made specifically for you. I think the harder people work, the luckier they get. And then
Yeah.
people that are average say, oh, he got lucky, but they didn't see all the hard work. So
hmm
I
the
disagree with
12
just
long
the last
years?
piece. Everything else I agree with. The last piece, I disagree. I think you deserve everything that you've earned.
No, 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 for sure. I think obviously you got a point. Um, I just think again because of how our brain growing up is always, and again, my brain has opened up. It's been challenged. It's grown. It's developed since then. But I think that's still something that I always keep in the back of my head. It's like, man, like history dictates that I probably wasn't supposed to be here. But again, to your point, technically, this is where I'm supposed to be. There's a reason why I'm here. So.
Yeah, it's
That's
amazing,
right.
man.
That's right. So I guess my question is, what do you tell that young kid who's getting out of high school to how do what advice do you give them to pursue a career just in general? Like how do they
Yeah.
know what to look for and how to succeed in that in any field they get into?
Yeah, I think it just is pretty. I guess I say it's basic, but it's not because again, it's easier said than done. First, I mean, coming out of high school, man, you're young. I always relate back to like Gary V. You know, he's very
Mm.
vulgar in how he speaks, but he always says like, dude, like you're young. It's like you don't have to have a decision right now. But I think you do have to have an idea as like, hey, what motivates you, right? What motivates you every day? What do you like to do? I mean, nowadays, there's pressure washing companies, there's painting companies, there's landscaping companies, there's car detailing companies, there's roofing companies. There's so many within our little town that we grew up in that it's like there's got to be something there, plumbers, electricians, whatever. So I mean, for me, it's like, hey, you need to take the moment to literally just sit down and put pen to paper. You know, I mean, I think a lot of people overlook the power of writing things down.
Yeah.
I always challenge people. It's like, hey, if you don't write it down, it's not going to happen. You have to be able to have something tangible that tells you, that reminds you every day, hey, like this is what I need to do. Because when you don't do that checkbox just mentally, it's like, man, I'm falling short. I need to step up. I admire Adrian's list of things that he goes on and just says, and I'm just like, man, I don't have anything like that, but maybe I need to,
Yeah.
right? But he does it because it's important to him. And so
Yeah.
again, it's finding something that's what's important to you. What do you feel you can go on with your life with doing and being satisfied and being happy and content with it? Because again, there's many people within any organization that they're there because they need that paycheck. Every 2 weeks they just like that paycheck. They know it's a security blanket for them that it's just gonna hit. And then there's some of us like, hey, like any day now that I'm okay that they came to me like, hey, you're like going. I'm like, all right, cool. Thank you for doing my job. Making my job easier because I'm out. I'm ready to go. But again, don't do something just because it's a paycheck. I mean, it's gonna be a job, and I've almost 12 years and I still have a passion for what I do. But again, I'd be remiss if I'm not always thinking about like, hey, what does life look outside of this organization? You know, with all that I do know, right, or that all that I have learned, I could be just as successful somewhere else. But again, that's a different conversation.
I think it's just a mindset thing, man. Like you
Yeah.
said, it's just if you go into any job, any field, working to learn and not for the paycheck, I
Mm-hmm.
think your mind expands to that point where it's like it's just a mindset thing,
Mm-hmm.
and knowing that there isn't a ceiling. It's just once you penetrate through it, you see the new stage of your life within that organization, like you said, and then that's clearly shown through your 12 years
Yeah.
in what you do. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
let me ask
agree.
you guys. Let me ask you guys a question. So, Adan, I think you're on. I think you were for a builder, right? So, you need to
mhm.
make sure that you're using the right paint over there. And then and then
I'll
and
get
then
with I'll get with you on that.
and then Adrian, I think what are you in like logistics or something? What do you do?
Yeah, I'm in inside sales for a logistics company. So
Oh,
my
okay,
title's a
good,
freight forwarder.
okay, good, good.
Yeah. So I help companies import products. So like I'm sure you guys
Uh,
get some material and stuff. So maybe you and I could talk about that. And so
yeah,
yeah, so a lot of these companies import products from Europe and China.
yeah,
We have offices all over. So
yeah.
that's the industry I'm in. So sales too, to keep it
Yeah,
frank.
no, that's. I'm not again. There's so many opportunities out there, but luckily, we're a lot of our stuff comes here stateside because you know you talk about like, hey, how do the conversations look within a room, right? So I can think about like let's say logistics. Um, in 2022, yeah, 2022, I think there was that freeze that happened in Texas. I believe it's 2022. Might be off on my ear, but for example, like in 2022, you guys might not know this, but 2022 there was a big freeze in Texas, and a lot of manufacturing plants basically had to shut down because their plumbing went out or whatever. But because of the world that I'm in, um, raw material came from those locations. So I don't know if you guys recall, like for example, there was a vehicle shortage. You guys remember that? It was like because there was like they couldn't
Yeah, like the
develop the
used car
chips.
market went up like crazy. Is
Yeah,
that what you're talking
exactly.
about?
Because they
Yeah.
couldn't manufacture the chips because it needed a specific raw material that was what's in it's what we use in our coatings. And so when it came to like the logistics, just because we're talking about what you do is you get to be a part of those conversations, and it's just so crazy how much is involved in just getting material. So guess what
Mhm.
we did? We said like, "Okay, well, we're not going to import anything from outside. Well, we still do, I'm sure, but we just they pivoted and said, you know what, we're just going to buy a plant ourselves. We're just going to do it ourselves. So,
Yeah,
um,
smart. If you got the
yeah,
pockets for it, that's the
yeah,
move,
yeah,
man. Because
yeah,
it's yeah, the tariffs and
yeah,
everything, it's a headache. But I
yeah.
mean, like you said, a job's a job. So
Yeah. And same thing with you, and same thing, like for example, my team, what I support is residential contractors and builders. So I know about the new construction world because I'm having conversations with all of Adan's competitors, every other day, at a high
Yeah,
level. So
yeah,
again, it's funny how in a way like we're always somewhat intertwined within our what we do.
yeah.
It just it's been I don't know how many years since we've I don't even know if in our lifetime we've actually had a verbal conversation, but we knew each other, we know each other, probably said hi, whatever,
Yeah.
kicked it, probably a couple feet from each other, but yeah,
that's why I value the conversation, man. This was a lot of fun. I got to like kind of know more about you and
yeah,
honestly, like what you guys were talking about, a successful person will succeed in every arena because there's pattern recognition. Like it doesn't matter if you go from one industry to another,
yeah,
a winner's gonna win, man. So it's cool to connect with other winners like that.
yeah, absolutely. What else? What else you guys got? What questions do you guys have? Unless you guys
Alan,
want me to ask questions.
no, no, I mean honestly, there's so much that you could take from the story that you just shared.
Yeah,
I mean, like to be honest with
yeah.
you, it's a lot of like the nitty-gritty because everybody's got their fight, everybody's
Hmm.
got because a lot of people think that it's hard to like get the result, but I think that it's
Hmm.
life that gets in the way and you've shown like your journey as like there was difficult times. And I think
Yeah,
that people think that life isn't supposed to be hard, but that's what makes it so exciting. Like
yeah,
imagine watching a movie of a hero that never had a problem. No one's gonna watch that movie. Like that's gonna be a
yeah,
boring movie. So
yeah,
it's cool to like
Yeah,
just
great point.
at the very minimum just to hear someone else's story. So like someone out there can feel like, man, like it's not just me that's going through like, a journey of where I'm trying to go. Cause I think it's hard to like connect with so many people, but the one thing is those people that are actually trying to go for greatness, they're gonna go through a journey and it's going to be quite similar to yours, to ours, like just adversity, obstacles,
yeah.
everything. So it's cool to hear it from another person that's chasing success or greatness.
Yeah, I think what's cool about what you guys are doing again, it's just being able to have a platform where, again, if there's that one person on the other end listening that may be going through that situation, that they know, like, hey, you know what, I'm not the only one. And then secondly, that, hey, you know what? I should probably reach out to this person. They might be able to give me some guidance. And there's a lot of us that may not have had that growing up or even going through your career, through your personal life, that you just sometimes don't know that there's someone that within your circle or within arm's length that you could actually reach out to. So I think for me, it's about, how can I impact someone as well? You
Hmm.
know, uh, and what I tell my team all the time, I'm not just a sales manager, right? I'm a therapist. I'm a doctor. I'm just like, hey man, I think you need to go get checked out, man. You sound pretty, So again, we have to be flexible in how we look at ourselves as well, because there's people, right, in this world that need of us in one form or fashion, and we got to be able to uh, apply whatever it is that we do know. Because I always tell people it'd be selfish of me to not be able to not pour the knowledge that I've learned in my career and just in life in general. Just riding a bike. Let's say it'd be messed up for me seeing a kid that doesn't know how to ride a bike and just walking past him. Like, hey, let me give you a hand. So it can be as simple as that.
Yep.
Yeah.
This man always has great points. I feel like any question that I have in my head is like answered in a different way. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
but yeah, man, to your point, I think it's just powerful to be able to have this platform and just kind of step into just making a small, tiny change in our community, right? I feel like when it comes to our community in Fellsmere, oftentimes there's a lot of I wouldn't call it bump heads, but I think a lot of the times it comes down to we don't want to help and we don't want
yeah,
to, open up and just speak. And,
yeah,
hopefully this video right here helps somebody just like reach out to you, reach out to
yeah,
Adrian or I, and like,
yeah,
and understand that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay
yeah,
to take advice. It's okay to not know what you're doing. At the beginning, what you mentioned, you said your manager asked you something, you're like, I don't know. Like it's okay to not
Yeah.
know, you know? Like if you don't accept that you don't know, you'll never know what's out there, right? If
Yeah.
you always close yourself to either you know everything, you act like you know everything, like that's already an obstacle. That's
Hmm.
already an obstacle that you're not allowing yourself to open up and listen to what other perspectives, what other perspectives are out there. So I
Yeah.
think it's been a very successful conversation, man. Honestly, like I said, most of the questions that I had is like, oh wow, like this man already brought a great point. Like, it's a
Yeah.
great point. I don't need to ask it. So I definitely learned a ton from you, man. And I really appreciate your time. Seriously.
No,
Yeah,
likewise, man. It's been good.
before you close it out, I'd love to hear any last like sentence, last word. Like if you could just, if you know how they ask those like crazy, like very unique questions in interview street interviews. Like I'm gonna think of one, something like that. Like if you were, if you were to leave one thing behind for, j just the next generation, whatever, some like crazy, unique, cool question. Just think of it
The
that
School of
whatever I
Hard
asked you was
Knocks.
awesome.
School Hard
What would
Knocks.
be your
Yeah.
statement to the world?
I don't know, man. I think it's for me. I'm always gonna go back to this because it's probably been the thing that probably has impacted me the most in my life. Is one, don't take life for granted. I think, and maybe you don't like this because I know you said life isn't short. I think, yeah, in one podcast you might have challenged Adan on something like that. But in a way, life to a degree is short, right? And I lost my dad and my grandfather within a 2 year span, and so if I could leave at least one thing behind, it's probably just if your family, specifically your parents are alive, people that are important to you, is call them and remind them how much you love them. I think that's the most important thing. I think what you and Adan do is amazing because that's the type of relationship I have with my brother. We talk a lot. He's got something going on that I support, and that's just something that I always try to do. Is just kind of keep in contact. And there's times where it's not like that, and it's tough. And you wish you could kind of change things and make things better, and that other person understand how much you actually do mean to them. So for me, it's always going to be, if you have someone that's important to you, just call them. Call them and remind them how much they do mean to you. And that's something that I do every day. It could be a personal or a professional. If I think of someone, my first instinct is to pick up that phone and call them and just check in. Hey, how are you? Because you don't know what day they're maybe going through something. They just needed that reminder, like, hey, like everything is good. You know what? Or you know what? I am going through something. You got time to chat. So it just be judicious of your time
What does
and
that mean? Sorry.
what is that?
I'm a vocabulary guy, so I need to know what that
Yeah,
means.
just
Studious.
be critical of how you spend your time. And for me, it's
Okay.
spend it with the people that are important, that matter, that could see you as someone that can maybe answer a question or solve a problem. So
Man, that's
to answer your
Love
amazing,
that,
man.
man.
question,
Thanks for
that's
sharing.
it.
Yeah, my God. I'm about to call my whole family. I'm about to call my whole phone log after that.
Yeah,
That touched me,
yeah.
bro. That really moved me. And no, I agree with what you said. So yeah, that's amazing. I think
It's not
that's the
something high level,
best
but
one.
I mean, it's something it's what's definitely important to me.
I
You
agree.
ask
To me as
anyone,
well. Family
you ask
oriented
anyone
all the
about
way.
me.
So that's
Family
amazing,
first,
man.
absolutely.
Man.
Comes to show the like how important it is to just put your phone to the side, man, and really take
Hmm.
the time to,
Yeah, me and Alan always talk about that. When we're family, we just do everything we can to be present,
Yeah,
put your phone away, like
yeah,
just be in the moment. So I
yeah.
Yeah, man.
appreciate that message. But any last closing thoughts, Alan?
No, man. Thanks a lot for your time, and apologies for your loss. You said the two
Yeah,
years, your
no,
grandfather, your dad, but
yeah,
I'm very thankful for you for sharing that with us, man. And
yeah,
I think it was a successful conversation.
Yeah, thank you for
absolutely,
your
man.
story, bro. Thank you
Yeah,
for
no, for
just all
sure.
the wisdom. I
Yeah.
learned a lot from you, and so the mission of the video is complete because I got a lot of value from that. So I appreciate it.
Good deal, man. We'll have to do
Yeah,
another one at some point on
Yep.
absolutely.
stocks and Bitcoin because I have questions.
Oh, I can't wait.
For
Let's do
sure.
it.
All
For
All right,
sure.
guys. Well, you guys have a good rest of your night. All right.
right, you too,
Alrighty.
man.
All right.
Have a good night.
You too.